The story starts with the monster chasing them. Xiao puts on the peg helmet, making it fidget. Xiao raises his gun and takes it down. Then they rushed into the building with the kids, with the man heroically carrying Xiao ahead of them. The monster was hot on their heels, and just as it was about to catch up, the man-dog paddled right into a giant pot ahead, with Xiao jumping in after him. The man led everyone into a relatively safe shelter and finally spoke. "You can't stay here. There's no water or food." "I can't help you," he said. Xiao seemed to recognize the man, but he kept his head down, avoiding her gaze, until she finally called out his name. Xiao suddenly didn't dare to look anymore, and the man also didn't want her to, until she shouted his name, and he finally looked up in shock. Let's call him White Absolute for now. This man was a long-time friend of Xiao. She slowly opened the wooden box and found the baby peacefully resting inside. The man finally took off his mask in response to Xiao's pleading gaze, looking soft as butter, and the family had finally found a new safe haven. That night, Xiao tossed and turned in bed, insisted Xiao opened the radio and put the headphones on him, slowly helping him to relax. Meanwhile, while chatting with White Absolute, Xiao realized there was 3 feet of concrete above them, and the monster would have to be right above to hear them. "Xiao, are your kids and wife still around?" White Absolute replied, "My son died on the day of the baseball game, and my wife recently turned into a man." When he started howling, "Feel free to let your imagination run wild." Just then, Xiao suddenly opened his eyes, hearing music from the radio. That meant there were other survivors on Earth. For years, Omo had been sending SOS signals to the radio, but no one ever replied. At this point, Xiao and Xiaoma felt a glimmer of hope, but White Absolute said, "There's nothing here. As soon as you're fine, get out of here." Cut, everyone sound asleep. When Xiaoma suddenly covers Xiao's mouth, shushing him, "No noise." Then the siblings sneak into the shelter. Xiao told Xiaoma, "That's not a song, it's a signal directing us." I checked the radio's location. I found the address, it's an island. I can walk along the train tracks and reach it in less than a day, if it even exists. That way, we wouldn't have to fear the monsters anymore. Xiao quickly cut off his sister's thoughts, saying it was too risky, but Xiaoma countered. "If I can find other survivors, I can use the high-frequency noise for broadcasting to let others know, so they can use the signal to fight the monsters. I might be able to save everyone, including us." Xiao desperately tried to persuade his sister, but Wu Mei firmly insisted, if it were Dad. Then the scene switched, and Xiao woke up to a drip of water, realizing he couldn't find the note left by Xiao. Boingo! Xiao sneaked away on her rescue journey alone. Xiao was going crazy, begging White Absolute to definitely bring Xiao back. "I've lost my husband and son, can't lose her too." White Absolute was speechless. What could he do? He couldn't watch his friend's daughter walk into danger. Meanwhile, Xiao trudged along the tracks, her feet bleeding, yet she showed no signs of stopping. The surrounding area was desolate, not even a single bird, and as she walked, a section of a train suddenly appeared ahead, with bodies scattered everywhere. She slowly pushed open the cockpit door, which seemed to be jammed by something. Xiao reached for the medical kit in the wall, ready to take it back for her brother's wounds. "I'm going to find White Absolute. I'm going now. I'm heading to find White Absolute immediately. But such a loud noise might disturb and attract even more monsters." So they had to quickly run into the house to hide. At this point, White Absolute told Xiao, "Let's hide here for now. We'll go home once they're gone." But he forgot that Xiao couldn't hear. She was getting a little anxious, but White Absolute gently cupped her face, telling her to speak slowly. At that moment, White Absolute slowly said, "I want to take you home." He tried hard to persuade Xiao not to do this anymore, but she wasn't listening. Facing the man, she said, "I don't have a home." Hours later, exhausted, Xiao slept on the ground, waking to find her hearing aid gone. And White Absolute was silent too. Xiao knelt down in despair, thinking he had abandoned her, and she lost her most precious hearing aid. But the next second, White Absolute crouched down, gently stroking Xiao's head, handing her back her hearing aid. Meanwhile, Xiao quietly crawled out. At this point, Xiao crawled out too, and White Absolute said, "I'll be back soon. Your leg needs bitter medicine. Otherwise, you won't last long, and I can't lose you too." After saying that, he carried Xiao away. Xiao arrived at the place where she lost her. Every time she passed by, her heart felt like it's being torn apart, filled with guilt. So, she took off her ring and placed it on a stump as if her mom was always. Later, Xiao went to the mall and found better medicine, bandages, and an oxygen tank for the baby. Xiao and White Absolute had reached a big bridge. They smiled at the distance, clearly a sign of new hope. They walked to a small town with many boats docked. However, it didn't seem that peaceful. Just as White Absolute approached a few boats, a shadow flashed behind her, giving her a huge scare. She raised her shotgun for inspection, but was surprised when a seemingly harmless little girl appeared in front of her, slowly approaching. Suddenly, the little girl quickly looped a rope around White Absolute's neck with a trap. Just then, many people emerged from other boats, eyeing Xiao up and down. They looked downright intimidating. Back to Xiao, and he placed the baby in the wooden box, quietly crawled out of the shelter, and made his way to the second floor with As she lifted the curtain in front of her, a dry corpse appeared, causing Xiao to jump back in fear, accidentally screaming. "Oh no!" The monster was getting closer, and she frantically ran towards the shelter, cramming herself into the subway hatch. Unexpectedly, in her panic, the door locked from the outside. When she could barely breathe, she realized the door was stuck. At that moment, the monster entered. Luckily, Xiao arrived, hearing loud sounds and sensing danger. Xiao struggled to breathe inside. She could only stand under the subway oxygen mask to catch her breath. Meanwhile, Xiao floated to the nearby smoke detector and got a bright idea. She shot at the ceiling, attracting the monster, then released the nearby oxygen tank with a bang. Instantly, the monster was engulfed in flames, but strangely, this guy was not afraid of fire. Thick smoke filled the air, and the smoke detector began to with the sound of water flowing. Xiao slowly maneuvered behind the monster, opened the shelter door, and rushed in without hesitation. By the time she opened the door, she